Welcome to KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu on our YouTube channel, Instagram, and across many social media platforms. I'm Michael Mitchell. I am a purple belt under Ryan Young, who is under Master Dave Kama. And so, Master Dave, honestly, we have been diving into the why with KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. And we had an interview with Ryan Young about a month ago. And in that interview, we just want to get to know you. It's really hard for you to get onto a channel and just talk about yourself. So the format that we're using today is just, I'm going to ask you some questions. We want to get to know the why and what got you started and a little bit more about Master Dave Kama. So welcome. And thank you so much for joining your own KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu channel.
Thanks for joining me. Thanks for inviting me anyway.
Absolutely. So Master Dave, I wanted to just start off with, tell me about the beginning, right? What did you train prior to discovering Jiu-Jitsu?
So I first started originally when I was a kid. My dad wanted me to take martial arts, but my mother was kind of against it. So I started Jiu-Jitsu when I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. So I started taking not Jiu-Jitsu, but I started doing martial arts. So I took Taekwondo when I first started. I didn't know what martial arts were or what was good, what wasn't good, stuff like that. You can watch movies and stuff like that. So I don't know, I don't know anything about it. So I started taking Taekwondo, and that was good. I actually excelled pretty fast on that. Became kind of the top of the class at the time. I only got to yellow belt, but excelled pretty fast in Taekwondo. So I kind of figured out I kind of had a knack for martial arts a little bit, so far anyway. And then so then I got a job in Southern California, so I moved to Southern California after that. And when I was in Southern California, I thought, well, I would just continue on my martial arts career and then just kind of keep on going with it. So I started looking around for some kind of martial arts, and I had, for whatever reason, I had a lot of trouble finding some place to train. I was looking for Taekwondo places. I didn't find any place that I really liked. So then I started just looking for anything, pretty much. And then I found, I don't know the timing of it, but I found Jeet Kune Do, stick fighting, and all that. And it was Danny Sando's gym. Mm-hmm. So I found that, and I was doing that for a while. I did Kung Fu for a short period of time. Didn't really like Kung Fu that much. I can learn it pretty fast. I figured out I can learn martial arts pretty fast, but I didn't really like Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. So there was also at the gym, there was a kickboxer at the gym. And actually he was pro, semi-pro kind of a kickboxer. So I started taking lessons with him, and he was really good. He was very intense, and he got me up pretty fast on kickboxing. And I got to where he wanted me to do exhibition matches, so I did an exhibition match for kickboxing. And
how'd you do?
I won the match, but I mean, of course, I wasn't that good at kickboxing. But I mean, I won that match. But it was just an exhibition match. And then, of course, I was doing, stick fighting and colleagues and stick fighting because I like sticks. I always liked sticks and knives, so I took that for a while. So I couldn't at the time I was taking Kali. It was the teacher that I was learning from at the time. He teaches pretty fast. Mm-hmm. So every single class he teaches something, and then the next class predicated on the first class. So if you didn't take the previous class,
you missed out.
You missed out, and you couldn't keep up on the next class. So I was working and had things to do. So it was hard to keep up. So I eventually kind of dropped out of that. I went as far as I could, but I had to drop out of that because I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't spend the time in the class. So I did that for a while. Ventured on to, I like the kickboxing stuff, so I ventured on to another gym which was a Sabat gym. Didn't know what Sabat was.
I was going to say, that's a wild transition.
Yeah, so Sabat was different for me. Didn't really like Sabat too much. It was interesting to figure out what Sabat was, but I kind of quickly figured out that Sabat no offense to anybody who does Savate, but it kind of turns into kickboxing once you start fighting it for real. So I go, okay, well, Savate's pretty cool, but I you know, I'm not a real big fan. I hurt my knee training Savate at the time. So at the time, there was a guy inside the gym who knew was taking lessons with Horion in Gracie. So he kind of came and was showing us some stuff. At the time, martial arts there's a lot of guys running around with like little gimmicks of martial arts stuff, you know, like wrist holds and all this kind of stuff. And they would always like show you these little gimmicks and like crank your wrist. And he was showing like, and I thought of him as like showing gimmicks again. So he showed a couple things I thought were pretty cool and actually like goes along with what I wanted to learn. Because although I'm taking like punching, kicking, hitting arts, I felt really, really uncomfortable with like getting on the ground. I knew a little bit about the ground, very little, but I understood that if I got on the ground, I'd be toast. So I was a little nervous. I can punch and kick and stuff like that, and stick fighting, stuff like that. But groundwork is like very uncomfortable with it. So still really uncomfortable with fighting really much. At the time, I was getting pretty good at fighting, so started getting a little bit of reputation of like people think I can fight, but I know I can't. I can for most part, but I have some serious vulnerabilities when I was back then. So I was kind of, yeah, I like fighting, but I like a lot of vulnerabilities in fighting. So
you've mentioned before, you know, it's almost like in a situation using specific martial arts, it can be really effective. But if you pull those rules and the buffer out, now it's open, and you never know what type of person you're going to compete against.
Right, and I was more interested in open fighting, right? Yeah. So like whatever goes, you know, guy attacks you, you know, how do you defend yourself, right? Yeah. So I have this big vulnerability if I take it to the ground, and then you watch all the fights that go around, and it's most of the stuff goes to the ground, you know, without the Gracies telling you that. I mean, I already knew that, you know. So when they say that everything goes to the ground, it's oh yeah, I've seen that before. That just kind of validates my thinking on it, right?
So up to this point, you've kind of just been searching, right? It wasn't about fitness necessarily. You wanted to learn and gain knowledge and gain experience in combat.
Right. Fitness wasn't an issue for me because I was actually, when I went to Southern California, I started racing outrigger canoes. So, I mean, just to tell you my regime, I was racing outrigger canoes. So my daily thing was I go to work, and you get off of work, and you go to the beach. You get in a boat, you race for 2 hours and practice for 2 hours. You get out of the boat, you change your clothes, you go run on the beach for half an hour or so, you know, like 2 miles, 4 miles. And then when you get done with that, you go to the gym, you lift weights for another 2 hours. And then you go home, you eat dinner, and you go to sleep. And then you go back to work the next day, and you start that all over again. So fitness for me when I started Jiu-Jitsu wasn't really an issue. But that was kind of,
your routine.
That was kind of my routine. But
so you're looking for something. A guy shows up at the gym, and he'd been training under Horion in the garage back then, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about what that looked like. What was your first class? Because obviously he convinced you enough to go and attend a class with him.
Yeah. So I damaged my knee pretty badly. I had lost posture cruciate, so it was gone. So it was like completely gone. And so I thought, well, kickboxing is not for me, you know, unless I get that repaired. Yeah. So I went to Horion. So I got the number for Horion. So I called Horion. He says, hey, come over to the house, and then you can check it out. So I went to Horion's house. He was making like his watermelon smoothie thing, you know, and I was kind of drooling over that. He didn't offer it to me, but anyway. So I signed.
Surprised you went back.
So he signed me up, and then he said, "Okay, go in the back, and then you'll meet the guy in the back." They had this 2-car garage or 3-car garage. I don't know how big it was, but then they had this other room in back of that. That was a private room. Okay. So Hoist was back there. So I started taking lessons with Hoist. So Hoist started in with first thing, he grabbed you by the neck for choke, and then he starts going through his thing, and then almost like within 10 minutes, I already knew, oh, yeah, so this is the stuff I wanted to learn. And then when he like mounts on top of you, and you have a hard time getting out, I can't even get out, I don't know how to get out, right? So I go, oh, yeah. So this is exactly what I wanted to learn, right? So I almost immediately hooked. So I started taking lessons at the garage. It was $20 a lesson, and then for private, and it's all privates. I didn't even offer to go to group class, so you have to take so many privates until they feel that you're okay to go to group class. So I started taking privates, and he said, okay, so well, you know, how many classes do you want? And I go, well, how many classes do you have? So he told me how many classes you have, and I would take all open spots that I was available to take. So I would just like dump my money into it because I loved it. So I started taking that, and from then on I started taking jiu-jitsu, and I never stopped. So so anyway, that's kind of how I got involved with jiu-jitsu. But
well, walk me through one of those classes, right? So early on, it's essentially a fundamentals course and a private lesson all in one.
right.
So what did that look like in your first, just call it 2 months of training there in that back room? What was the format?
It's all basics. I mean, like the simple stuff. If somebody comes up to you and chokes you, what do you do? You know, if somebody grabs you from behind over 2 arms, what do you do? Under the arms, front, over the arms, under the arms. Somebody mounts you, how to get them off. If you just like cross-side, it's like how do you get out of that? You know, so it was all like all the basic stuff of somebody holding you down. It's basically escapes of all their different attacks, right?
Yeah.
So again, you're trying to get a better understanding of how to defend yourself, basically, right?
Yeah.
So the attacks came later, but all that stuff was like just this basic stuff, defense and stuff like that.
So once they felt you were ready, or you'd shown that you were kind of assimilated into their curriculum, what did the group format look like? About how big were the classes back then? And obviously it was in the bigger part of the garage up front.
Yeah. So actually, by the time I got to group classes, I think Horian was already into his bigger gym, because I don't remember being inside the gym, inside the garage group classes too much. Oh no, I take that back. So I did go through a few group classes in the garages, but it was more like in Machados. So the Machados were teaching also that back then in the garages. Jean-Jacques, I think. Carlos Machado, Hickson was teaching back then, you know, Hoist, of course. And then when you take the privates, you bounce around to whoever was available. And then occasionally they have group classes. Mostly, from my experience, was at Machado's place. They had a bigger garage.
Yeah. And
so it was kind of open format. You kind of went over there and kind of did that. So, it was kind of open format, and the teachers kind of taught something, and then you kind of rolled around, and then you kind of played around with moves and stuff like that. That's kind of like we do normally now.
Yeah, so. That's probably where a lot of that's based off of.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you a little bit further. So once you progressed through, you've gone through the privates, you went into group classes. Did you continue taking privates at this time, or were you just mostly group classes?
Yeah, because I thought I had a lot of money back then. So basically, I took as many groups and privates as they had available.
Yeah.
Or that I was available to. So if I had time, because I was also racing outrigger canoes at the same time.
You still kept racing?
I was still doing that. Yeah. So I was doing that, plus I was doing jiu-jitsu at the same time. So which is a funny thing, you know. So you go to these group classes and you know, some instruction in the beginning, and you fight for, you know, it's a 2-hour class, and then after you get done, everybody's all worn out. But it's just because I was racing outrigger canoes, I was like really, really good shape, you know. So at the end of the 2 hours, it wasn't enough for me. So I had to go to lift weights, and I had to go running afterwards to kind of keep up my my athletics. So because racing requires you to be like really fit, so that you can be in the top boat, the first boat, second boat, third boat. If you're not fit or you don't exercise, then they put you in the second or third boat, and it's well, the lower boats, it gets progressively worse for racing and stuff like that. So anyway,
that's wild. So tell me a little bit about who you learned under at the time. So you've talked about Horian, you've talked about Hoist. Were there any others that got introduced during this time?
Yeah, so there was Machado's also involved in some of that, but most of my training is from Hickson. So I don't know how it worked out. Somehow I started taking lessons with Hickson.
Yeah.
So at the time I didn't know who Hickson was, so basically all of them kicked my ass. So I don't know the difference between one or the other. And I never asked. I didn't care to ask. I thought it was rude to ask. So I just trained with whoever, right?
Yeah.
But I glommed on to Hickson's training more. I just, for his personality and the way he taught and the way I learned, I liked it better. So I started going with Hickson more. Even when Horan moved to the new school,
yeah.
I glommed onto Hickson's training more, although I would take lessons with whoever was teaching that day, Hoist or Horion or Hickson. But the people who were teaching the most were Hoist and occasionally Hickson at that time. And
yeah.
then but at the Torrance gym. So I did that. But that's kind of mostly what I got to learn from. And then when they split, when Hickson split from Horion, then I followed Hickson onto his gym. There was a short period of time where I was going to Horion's and Hickson's gym, but inevitably I chose Hickson and I went with Hickson. So.
Roughly what belt were you? I know it's all kind of blended together at this point, just midway through your journey.
Don't remember what belt I was when I went over to Hickson's. I would guess like blue or purple or something like that.
What was the class format like? When you were with Hickson, what was the class format like? Did he have you come in already warmed up? Did you warm up with him and stretch and get loose?
Yeah, so most of the classes, in Horion's gym and Hickson's gym, pretty much was like a short warm up, some instruction, and then you practice the move a little bit, and then afterwards it was like, you would try to train, and then what I would try to do is whatever they taught that day, I would try to like execute it. So if they taught a choke that day, so then or a specific choke, then I would try to do that specific choke on the open rolling, because for me is like it helped me to try to immediately pull off what they just showed, right?
Yeah.
And in kind of funny ways, says, well, does this shit really work? So then you would try it on open rolling on people who are resisting you and see if it works really. And then, 50% of the time it would, and 50% of the time it wouldn't, because either I didn't learn it right, or the guy was just better than me or something like that. But, if you do it immediately, for me, it kind of sunk in my head, and I can remember it better that way. So that's kind of the way I did it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you've had a special relationship with Hickson over the years. Just you've acknowledged how great he is at the art, and you've taken on a lot of those qualities yourself. You've borrowed a lot of things that you've learned from him over the years. Everybody should listen. It is a long journey, my friend, and I don't know if there'll ever be another martial artist like Hickson ever.
Yeah.
But it's special that you got so much time with him to delve into what you've created here with Kama Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of the warm-ups and the exercises and the principles of self-defense and understanding the fundamentals came from your time there. So that's important. One thing I did want to ask you was, when was the first time you mentioned all of the Gracies kind of tooled you up pretty good and were able to just make you feel very redundant in your skill level early. When was the first time you really differentiated Hickson from anybody else you trained with? Can you describe those types of roles in training?
I don't really remember when I figured out who Hickson was. Somebody had told me who Hickson was, and I had already been training with him for years.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me who Hickson was, and I go, oh shit, I didn't really realize that he was the best in the family. I knew he was good.
Yeah.
But you don't normally see Hickson train with Hoist or Horion and stuff like that. So they don't normally see him like that. So then somebody like enlightened me, like, oh no, do you don't know who Hickson is? Like, it's like, yeah, I know who Hickson is. It's like, well, you know who Hickson is? I mean, okay, well, whatever. Fucking show me, And they tell me, and I go, oh shit, I didn't really realize that. I know he's really, really good, but I didn't realize that. And then shortly after that, Hickson started doing these sessions where he would go in the middle of the class and he would like go around the room and he'd tap everybody around the room, and he would do it in like a time period. And so I think that was kind of his way to kind of train and get better and stuff like that. And then he would do it with one hand, and he would do it like no hands and tap everybody around the room and stuff like that. And then occasionally Hoist was in the room, he would do the same thing to Hoist, So I was going, oh yeah, he's really really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But that's kind of my experience with Hickson.
So during this period, you're still actively racing and canoeing. You're doing boat racing. You had various different types of races that you participated in over a lifetime.
Right.
You were going to school as well.
Oh yeah. So I don't know when I started college in that whole, but eventually I started going to college. I take that back. So when I first came to Southern California, it was I worked for the power company. So the power company, I kind of quickly understood that my education was kind of like a little bit behind. So I went to El Camino College and did some small classes to kind of bring up my knowledge. And eventually I went to I decided to get my undergraduate degree, so in business. So I started that. That took me a while because I took a big break in between. But eventually I got my undergraduate degree, and then I got my master's degree after that. So I found out that actually I'm pretty good at school. I just try to, whatever I do, I try to do it as best as I can. So I found out that actually I'm pretty good at school. So I got magna cum laude. So I got 1B when I'm my undergraduate degree. I got 1B that made me like magma. So if I got another A, it would have made me summa cum laude. But yeah, so I did fairly well. I realized I can't stand B's, So I always wanted A's, and it was just a thing for me. So then when I went to my master's degree, I got straight A's for master's degree. So it was, for me, master's degree was a little easier than the undergraduate. So I got a master's in business MBA. So yeah.
Did you do one master's degree, or did you do more than one?
Just one.
Just the one?
Yeah,
okay.
Just the one master's degree.
That's awesome.
Yeah, plus the master's degree in Jiu-Jitsu. So
yeah,
that's actually more time than that.
That's a doctorate plus. Right?
Doctorate, yeah.
No,
right.
But everything you've done, you've always put your whole heart into it. And so tell me a little bit about your first interactions with Ryan. I know it kind of had a period of time where you were together, and then there was a little break and transition where you were off doing different things. But tell me a little bit about Ryan Young and your relationship with him.
Okay, so I knew Ryan from like way back in the when Ryan came around, but it was somewhere at a time where with Hickson and Orion split,
right.
Close to that sometime. And I remember from that time because he's from Hawaii, I'm from Hawaii, so I kind of remembered him, and then rolling around with him. And then after that, once we went to Hickson's place, somewhere along there, I moved to farther down Southern California, which is like an hour and a half away from Hickson's gym.
Yeah.
So I only went to Hickson's gym like periodically after that. I went down to Laguna Niguel, which is where Hickson had started a gym, Laguna Niguel, and then so I tried training there, and so I kind of periodically went up to Hickson's gym, and for what Ryan was telling me, he was going there on a regular basis, but he never saw me at Hickson's gym. And so I guess kind of a hit and miss kind of a thing.
Different timing.
Yeah. But then eventually he had told me, this is what he told me. He's like, he was kind of impressed with how I would roll with him before. So he went looking for me. He couldn't find me.
Yeah.
And I'm not really good at communication. I'm not really good at like making sure everybody knows where I'm at. So
right.
Still not. But
well, you have a reputation as being a hidden gem for that reason.
Yeah. That came up. Yeah. But he eventually found me through a friend of his, and then he showed up, and I immediately remembered him because I remembered his face. And then, so I really liked him before, and then so he came to the gym and he started training with us, and then what I was teaching and stuff like that, he really liked because it kind of fit like some holes that he had in his game.
Yeah.
So then he stayed with us, and then it worked into a pretty good relationship, something like that. Worked pretty good.
And then a little over a decade ago, you two decided to open up a branch of Kama Jiu-Jitsu in Texas, of all places.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the reason I started teaching is like because Limon at Hickson's gym, every time I went up there, he wanted me to teach, so I taught. And, they gave me some breaks on my fees to the gym, so I started teaching, and I started liking teaching. So Limon got me started on teaching.
Yeah.
And then I started figuring out, I think I teach pretty good, you know, in my own mind anyway. But but then I started getting reaffirmed by other students. They said they like my teaching and stuff like that. So I said, okay, cool, maybe I am pretty good. So so then the Laguna Niguel place, I was training on there. Hickson left from teaching there. Limon was teaching there. He left from teaching down there. So Mark Eckert was teaching down there, and then I started teaching there. So we taught on different days. He taught on, like, I forget what days, like Monday, Wednesday, and I taught Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that. So we would intermittently teach. So I started teaching down there. So that worked out to a pretty good gig. And basically, I was just teaching because I needed someplace to train. I like training jiu-jitsu. I mean, teaching was kind of fun for me. I never really thought about it as a career because I work for the power company, so I don't really need to start a whole nother career. So I just was doing it for fun, you know. But Ryan came along, and we trained with him for several years, and then he decided to move to Texas. Yeah. So when he moved to Texas, I said, okay, good for you. And then he went to Texas, and I told him, well, go find a gym that you can, you like, and then start training, keep training and stuff like that. So I don't want to go into, he can probably tell you all the different things that happen in Texas, but eventually what he did is he called me up and he says, hey, ran into some issues here in Texas. I says, screw it, I'm going to start my own gym. I says, what do you think about starting a gym? And I go, well, I was really not interested in starting the gym. I'm not really interested in running a gym. So I says, but if you want to open a gym, I'm more than willing to support you and all that kind of stuff. But he said he's gonna open one. He says, you want to be full partner, you want to be half partner, what do you want to do? So I thought about it more. A couple of months later, I thought about it, and I got back to him, and I told him, hey, why don't we go 50-50 on it,
Yeah.
So we did that, and then it took off, and so now we have, Dallas, and Flower Mound, and then we still have the one in Laguna. Because eventually Mark Eckert left that Laguna gym, and then I started running it. So we have that one in Laguna, we have this one in Flower Mound, and then we opened one in Austin too for a short period of time. But the teacher down there that we had, he wanted to move back to Flower Mound or in Dallas area. Yeah. So we shut down the Austin gym. So we just have the two gyms now.
Yeah, we actually still have several students from Austin that still come up here and visit.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like a 3-4 hour drive from
it is.
Austin.
And they come
anyway,
Yeah, so it's incredible. And I think part of it is I've had kind of the privilege of sitting down and watching you and Professor Ryan work through the curriculum. And you're always fine-tuning it, not so much as inventing new things, but you're always just testing it and making sure and validating what you've trained and what you've learned. And I just think it's a great process. Yeah. So for you, when we're talking about newer students and people that are just trying to find that passion for jiu-jitsu, what are the important things to focus on? What does that look like for you?
So for I think there's various paths for that. So like when new students come in, the new students kind of vary, depends on what they're looking for, but sometimes I just tell them about my experience, with jiu-jitsu. I mean, I fell in love with it immediately, and I just kind of tell them like what it did for me. So a little bit of my experience of all through jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But I think more importantly, what it did for me is like it elevated my confidence level as far as fighting goes. It's like I'm saying tenfold, but it's probably more than that. It's like I took martial arts before, and probably I was considered like a pretty good fighter before I took jiu-jitsu. I don't think so, but some people consider me a good fighter. But as soon as I started taking jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh my God! It's like I never realized that there was martial arts there that could take you to like bring you up to that level that quickly, and be that effective at what you're doing. It's like, oh my God, it's like, this is great, you know. So so I kind of express that to new students. Like, I think it's good for everyone to take. I think for guys, for males, I think all guys should take this.
Right.
It elevates your confidence level.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys who are, for whatever reasons, are like thrown into the mix of like, you know, you're the husband, you're the protector, so you have to protect, and then if you don't know how to fight, you suck at protecting.
Yeah,
basically.
that's fair.
So I said, then the better fighter you become, the better protector you are. The less you can fight, the less of a protector you are. So you have to, if you can't fight, then you have to resort to other tactics like calling the police or pulling a gun or knife or a better strategy, stay away from bad areas, stuff like that. So, so not that we all don't do that. We all do that, but the added ability to fight actually allows you more leeway, and it actually allows you more, self-confidence in yourself. And I think a lot of guys have a problem with self-confidence, ego issues, and stuff like that. I think Jiu-Jitsu helps a lot with that. To have it doesn't really matter if it's like in a fighting sense or if in a business sense. If you are in I've been a manager for a lot of years for Edison, so it helps when you're in a business sense. Like so some people go, so what, you fight at work? I go, no.
Although
I don't. I says, so that would be a bad management practice. but so there's some people in business that get pretty aggressive, you know, and then if you deal with the field, sometimes they get even more aggressive. It depends on what kind of field you're in, something like that. And guys sometimes, you know, because of their ego or because they have a lack of self-confidence, will get into your grill and then challenge you on it, right? So as a manager, I think it makes you a way better manager, because I've have several cases where some people got in my grill, it's like, and started challenging me, like lean over the desk or like walk up to me and right in your face and then do something, you know, kind of, they don't say those words, but they get in your face.
It's just a physical intimidation added to what they're trying to get across, which is not effective. Right.
And so like, now I know how good I can fight, right? So I know I can handle. So I say that, I know what I can handle I think is a more appropriate term than people saying I can fight good or I can fight bad. I think you understanding what you can handle is a more appropriate way to say it, because not any one fighter in the world can beat everybody. You know, I don't think. I mean, even like the fighters that have never beat by anybody, Hickson's never, you know, is known to not beat by anybody. But I believe even he can be beat eventually, you know. Even like you see all the professional fighters, top in the world, eventually they always
Everybody's
lose.
Going to have their day.
Everybody's going to have their day where they could possibly lose, right?
So confidence, right? We talked about the men and confidence in the gym, confidence out in the public or in the street, confidence in the workplace. Women, obviously, confidence in the workplace, same thing applies, right? You're instilling in them that sense of self-awareness and building up their confidence level through training. How else does that benefit the female population?
Well, so the same thing. So when you say I can fight good, I can fight bad. So when you start talking about women and kids, it's like, can you fight good or fight bad? Then everybody kind of loses their mind over like what that really means.
Right.
So that's why I use the term, like, you know, I understand how good I can fight is a better and a more appropriate, I think, way to kind of like understand it. If say for women, it's like, says, can they fight good? It's like, well, yeah, as far as women goes, I mean, but you know, you get a guy, she like stomp her ass, you know, like, and then that comment gets made all the time, whether you like it, whether you don't, it gets made, right? Can you fight a bigger guy, a small guy? It's like even a small guy could beat a woman, you know. They always make those freaking comments, right? Right. So I said, but if a woman understands like what she can handle, you know, how big of a person you can handle, how little person, she can now deal with, like, says, do I challenge this person, or do I back off, or do I find an alternative strategy for dealing with the situation? She better understands self-defense because she's more aware of what she's able to handle, what she's not. Because some people will, and I've met quite a few people, some people will go, like, I says, no, I've always been a person, like, I will not stand down. I will always, like I'm not backing down at all. It's like, well, you're stupid. It's like, you can't handle that. Why are you putting yourself in that situation? You will die in that situation. Come up with a better strategy. So when people learn how to fight, I think they come up with better strategies how to deal with, like, different situations.
Sure.
So when you apply that to women and to kids, when you teach them how to fight, they're more aware of what they're capable of, and they will better handle different fighting situations more effectively.
Okay.
Put it that way. So a woman doesn't have to beat a man, right? She just has to sneak behind him and hit him in the nuts with a fucking stick. Like, it's a better strategy.
Yeah, my wife trains here. Don't give her any ideas.
So better strategy. It's like, she says, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
It says, you know how to fight. It's like, you see how big that fucker is?
Yeah.
They're like, I'm sorry about the term, but you see how big that guy is? I guess I'm not going to put myself, I might be able to beat him because I know he doesn't know how to fight, but to put myself at risk, I have kids to take care of.
Yeah.
I have a job to go to. You know, I have things to take care of. I says, I'm not going to put myself at risk for this situation, so I'm going to handle it differently. So it helps.
Yeah. So a big part of that is just giving women an understanding of the tools they have at their disposal, right? What they can find, what resources they can pull from, and then what they're capable of handling personally to get out of a situation. Situational awareness.
Yeah.
Right? And that mindset of, okay, if this person does this, or if this size person does this, these are my options available.
Right, and so we're talking about it in the case of women and for kids, right?
Right.
Because we know, like, typically women are, like, not as strong as men, typically, but they can be, but they typically are not.
Sure.
Of course, like a 2-year-old, I'll exaggerate, a 2-year-old is typically not as strong as a full-grown man.
Right.
Anyway, so to get rid of that argument, but but that applies to men too.
Yes, it does.
It's like I fight good, I fight bad. So that's a really bad term to use. I says, well, why? It says, you fight good relative to what?
Yeah.
To the world? It's like, you fight like shit.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, like, you gotta, it's like, well, I mean, it depends what you're talking about. So, okay, so what I'm talking about is, like, you understand how good you fight and how good fight you don't, how good you don't fight, right?
Right.
And so when you enter into situations, you handle them appropriately.
Yeah.
And it says, and then the better fighter you are, you can handle them differently. I'll just put it that way. You can handle them differently than if you don't fight as good.
Yeah.
So the better you can fight, the more you can challenge. If you don't fight as good, then you have to weigh that out, and maybe you don't challenge as much because you can't. But you want to win all situations. So that's how you. So you want to win every single fight. Yes. It says, but you don't fight very good. It says, yeah, but I have a terrific strategy. Yeah, I learned it from my wife. She sneaks behind, she whacks him in the balls with a stick.
That's exactly it.
I had a terrific strategy. So I mean, so you kind of, and then the better fighter you become, the less strategy. I wouldn't say less strategy, but you know, you can handle things a lot differently.
You have more resources at your.
You're more confident. Right. Somebody challenges you now. You can say what you want. So sometimes I don't know if you like some guys get in a situation. A big guy comes up to you, and then he's obviously going to beat your ass if you say something wrong.
Right.
So you don't say what you want to say because he might kick your ass, and you understand where you're sitting at, right? If you fight better and you know that he can't fight, I'll say whatever I want. Yeah. You know. Of course.
Now,
you also want to be respectful. Your ultimate goal is to the situation. You want it to come out with a good result, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have to back down from this guy, even though I know he's wrong. I can say what I want. If he wants to take it to fighting,
that's fair.
You can do that, but it's not advisable, right? So, but I can speak up. So it helps your guys' self-confidence.
Yeah.
Of course, women and kids have better self-confidence in that.
Yeah. So you've always said the ultimate goal is you don't want to fight. If you don't have to, don't fight, back away. But knowing what you're capable of,
Right.
right? Having an understanding of your situation and what the other person might be capable of gives you a better perspective and helps you to handle it. Right?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and that's basically, well, my belief is like society in a whole, people, you don't want to be fighting people all the time. You want to get along with people and stuff like that. But there are people that,
they intend to do harm.
The solution is fighting because they attack you and it's self-defense. So, so then I'm prepared for that. So, hope for peace.
Yeah.
Prepare for war.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So beginning students, we're here to equip you. You're here to give them the knowledge and the understanding of the curriculum that you and Professor Ryan have done a great job of creating. Everything you do is based on self-defense and a core curriculum piece. Tell me about the importance of understanding, like a student that wants to train with Kama Jiu-Jitsu or any other school, for example. What is the importance of having a foundational curriculum for them to base that on?
It's really important. So I grew up with not a great foundation. I wouldn't say great, but it seemed to me when I was going through it, I wasn't handed a piece of paper and say, this is the curriculum. It was like, okay, you learned this, you learned that. It was kind of like mixed up. I can learn that way. Right. But when I start teaching, I find out that not everybody can learn that way. I can learn verbally, and I can learn I can watch people. I can learn that way, and I can learn physically. If somebody shows me the weight, something I can learn all different ways. Some people can only learn verbally. Some people can only learn physically. And it was kind of, when I started teaching, it was kind of very interesting to me, the differences in people and how they learn something like that. So you kind of have to become a better teacher and get more tools in your toolbox to learn better, to teach other people. Mm-hmm. But to have a curriculum, it's kind of like it gives a nice little standard for everybody to understand what they're headed for. Kind of like going to school or going to college. I'm going to be taking these courses to get my college degree, right? So this is what I have to learn to meet the goal, right? So just at a minimum, I have to learn these things. What do these things mean? I have no idea, and I'll learn them as I go, right? Yes. So, but it gives you a standard. So it people like that, and it works for the majority of people to have a nice little standard.
And part of that you and Ryan have done a good job of creating is cultivating a culture within your instructors so that they all know the curriculum. They're able to measure the student against that and continue the standard that you're trying to set here.
Yeah, which is a hurdle. I mean, we're dealing with people, so people make mistakes. People learn at different levels. When you say one thing, kind of like the thing, if I tell one person in a room, you go around the room, by the time it gets back to you, it's all different, right? So just understanding that, we try to make sure our teachers are teaching the same stuff, right, and make sure they understand the moves the way we teach them. And there's always a little bit of adjustments here and there. I mean, you say something, it goes in somebody's brain, it comes out differently almost every single time. Yeah. But if you keep on reinforcing it and you keep on kind of bringing it back with the teachers and stuff like that, and we kind of talk to the teachers, it helps the teachers to kind of tune themselves up. Sometimes the teachers remember it wrong, or sometimes the teachers actually improve upon it, and put it that way. Sometimes they improve upon the move that we did, which is very interesting. Oh, well, show me what you got. And it's kind of funny, say 50% of the time they bring stuff and they show us, oh, this is the new stuff, it works a lot better. And they show it to us and we go, no.
Have you thought about doing this?
Yeah. And then we'll have the other 50% will come back and they'll show us stuff, and then we'll go, oh, that's actually pretty good. so it's good. So it makes it a two-way environment, and then we learn from our teachers, and then we try to teach our teachers and stuff like that, and then of course Hickson, we bring that stuff to Hickson, and then he always says no. He shows us something new, and he kind of tunes us up. So, but yeah.
I think that's a unique component of the school, is that you've kept up communication with Hickson all this time. When we made changes to our gi and no gi season, you went to Hickson. When we talked about fundamentals and basics and self-defense and what we're going to teach, you're always communicating. Whether it's you, Hickson, Ryan, you guys you have a great relationship, and I think that's part of what makes this school successful.
Yeah, it really helps. Yeah, and then I get along with Hickson really, really well. I like him a lot. So as a person, and respect for his career. I mean,
Sure.
that goes without saying. But I like him as a person. He's a really nice guy, and kind of inspirational. If you listen to him on his philosophies and what he thinks and stuff like that, he has a really good opinion of the world and how things go, especially as far as jiu-jitsu goes. It helps, Yeah.
Well, I think it's unique, and one of the last points I want to make today is just that you're coming to Texas once a month, and you're continuing to work and refine and make sure that the curriculum is handled appropriately. And you and Ryan have done a good job of just kind of recreating it over and over and over again in terms of making sure that it's being done the way that you were taught. And so tell us a little bit about why spend the time, right? Once a month is highly unusual for a master to come back to a school in another location.
It's just I think it's important for somebody like me to come to the school and to make sure that our schools are attached and make sure we're teaching the same stuff. I think it just helps, and me talking to Ryan and me coming out here, me just talking to Ryan on the phone, it's like it doesn't, or online or something like that, it doesn't really do justice of me showing up here and talking to you guys personally, and then kind of showing me what you guys got going on, and then seeing how you guys teach and see how the students are doing. It works way better, and then as far as refining things, it helps quite a bit. Yeah.
It's been an incredible environment in the community that you guys have created here. It's been a privilege for me to train under you and under Ryan. And so part of the point of interviews like this is just to kind of share a little bit of what I get to experience. Selfishly, I get to experience this all the time. But no, it really is unusual to have a school that continues to focus on basics, on curriculum, on making sure that everybody understands it and elevating everybody as a group. A lot of times you'll have some really talented individuals that all come together, and maybe they haven't trained there for just 6 months, and now they're a lead instructor and they're bringing what they learned. Yeah. And those are great, right? Those are great places to train. What's unusual about this location in particular is just the focus, right? Everybody learns this foundational level, and it elevates everyone again, all at the same time. So it has been a privilege to come up in that system. This has been the only system I've ever known.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm having a good time, man. No, I really can't thank you enough for sitting down with me. I know interviews sometimes can be a little awkward. It's hard to talk about yourself. But I really want to thank you for your time, your teaching, and just what you've given to the community as a whole, not just here at KAATARO, but across the jiu-jitsu world.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. Yeah. It's like
yeah. Anything you want to say?
No, it's just like I'm very uncomfortable with interviews. I always have been. I don't like fame or all that kind of stuff. I've never really glommed on and stuff. I actually run away from it a lot. Yeah. So these interviews kind of throw me off a little bit. But
yeah, we gave you about a 10-minute warning that we were doing this back there.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and they also gave me a glass of whiskey too. So it's kind of warmed me up. It's yeah. So. But yeah, I really appreciate the gym. Has just been a really great experience and stuff like that. The Gracies and their jiu-jitsu has really improved me and helped me, and I kind of want to give back to the community and the students and stuff like that. The students who want to learn jiu-jitsu. One last thing I would like to say is for self-defense stuff. There's I think there's a little controversy self-defense versus sport versus everybody's doing the no gi stuff and gi stuff and all that kind of stuff. So we're focused on self-defense, and I think people get lost on what self-defense means.
Yeah.
A lot of different understandings of what self-defense is, and I kind of just say self-defense is defending yourself against you getting in a fight in the street, right? Yeah. And then you go, I says, okay, so and some people said, well, those sport guys can't defend themselves in the street. I says, no, I think they can. I think it depends on what they learn and what they've been taught. It might be able to be improved, or they might be fine. It depends on what they've learned. I think that you should always be, to try to learn how to defend yourself against everything. The foundation that we have actually gets everybody up to the standard. And then if you have time, you have money, or if you have the talent, you want to expand on that, right? So there's legs, there's gi, there's no gi, there's stick fighting, there's knife fighting, there's gun fighting, there's nuclear weapon pushing the button. So, I mean,
What do I sign up
yeah, there's shooting a 50 caliber machine gun at people. I mean, what are you talking about self-defense? I mean, so I says, do I have time to learn all that stuff? No, I don't have time to learn all that stuff, but I do best what I can, and I do best what I can get a hold of. So that's, I think, what self-defense is. Do you not learn the sports stuff? It says, no, I think a lot of sports stuff is great. I love it. Leg stuff, oh yeah, it's definitely great. No gi, shooting guns, learning how to fight knives, stick fighting, all that kind of stuff is great. It says, and it becomes overwhelming after a while. It's like, how much time do you have to dedicate to this? If you had time to dedicate, if you said, okay, so what do you suggest is to be like the basic self-defense is learn jiu-jitsu. It's like I'm trying not to be biased, but I've done our martial arts. I've seen gun fighting, shooting, stick fighting, kickboxing, all that kind of stuff. And the one thing that is pretty consistent is jiu-jitsu. If you go back in history, jiu-jitsu cleaned house on the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat every single martial art inside the United States. I mean, just clean house on them, right? Whether they do that now or not, because everybody knows jiu-jitsu, is a different matter. So if you only had the time to do one martial art, you would do jiu-jitsu, and you would do the basics jiu-jitsu, and then start working your way up. As much time or as money or availability you had, and you start working on that one. So I would suggest that to everybody.
It's been a good foundation.
It's been good to me.
Yeah. Well, listen, as you said, you searched a long time. You excelled in multiple modalities of martial arts, and jiu-jitsu for you was always the foundational piece. I know you still trained in knife fighting. I know you still trained with firearms and other things like that. So you've never stopped.
Yeah.
But having jiu-jitsu as that cornerstone piece has been
probably the best, I think, out of all those things. Yeah, everything just adds on to your abilities. If I was better at judo, or I was better at wrestling, or if I was better at, whatever martial arts you want to think of.
Right.
All those martial arts, I think, adds to your abilities, the little pieces, some small, some large. But if I trained all those things, every single piece of it, I would be lousy at all of them.
That's fair.
So, yeah. But
just focus in on what you can, devote the time, continue to grow.
Right.
And I think that's solid advice.
Jiu-Jitsu makes the best. I think Jiu-Jitsu will give you the best bang for your buck. Yeah.
That's sound advice. Well, Master Dave, thank you, my friend.
Thanks for
let's make our effort to do our best Ryan impression to close out the video. So this is Michael Mitchell and Master Dave Kama. We hope you're doing well. You got another Ryan adage we can throw in there?
No, I really don't.
I think that's it. Just happy training, I think, is another line. So we'll do our best to close it out.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.